When it comes to hearing, hearing is one thing, but understanding is another thing. So today I'm here with Dr. Danny Gnewikow talking about hearing loss. And I remember with my grandfather, he would often complain to me that I was mumbling a lot. And I know he had a hearing loss. You know, why do people respond that way?
It's probably in the ear of the beholder. What happens is you tend to lose hearing in certain frequency ranges is that certain speech sounds that the normal ear picks up with ease are no longer audible. To describe that, I'm going to use a chart, and this is a little more complicated than some of the things we've done in the past, but I think if you pay close attention, it'll make some sense to you. So on this chart, at the top we have numbers from about 125 over to about 8,000. Those of you that are stereo buffs will realize those are different frequency ranges. If you're a musician, you can think of this as a piano keyboard with the low frequencies of the bass on the left, and as the number gets larger, we're moving to the right of the keyboard. So when we test an individual, one of the first things we do is to give them different frequencies to try to determine how much sound it takes in order for them to hear that particular frequency. So just as an example, on the side you see numbers from 0 down to about 100. As we go down on the chart to the bottom and the numbers get larger, it's just like your television. When the numbers get larger, the volume is louder. So 0 would mean sounds are very soft. So if I test an 18-year-old boy, and let's just put a little circle for every level that he hears, and we'll use these little circles, and that simply means for every frequency, we only had to turn the sound up just a little bit and he could hear it. So that means that any sound lower on the chart, he's able to hear. So he could hear the water drip or the clock tick or the birds chirping or all of these speech sounds. But what happens in a hearing loss is you begin to lose certain frequency ranges. So now let's take a person that has a high frequency hearing loss. And so we give them a sound in the lower frequencies and maybe they hear it about the same. And maybe a little higher, they hear it about the same. But then as we start to go into the higher frequencies, we're required to turn the sound louder before they can hear it. So if I give them this frequency and say, hey, tell me when you hear it, and say they don't hear it until we get all the way to here, then we know that any sounds above that, they're not going to hear. And as we go into the higher frequencies, we may have to turn it louder. So when we put all of these lines together, we can see this is the frequency range of that person's ear. Again, if you're into stereos, you would know the word frequency response. So instead of hearing everything at the top, they're hearing certain frequencies at the top, but the high frequencies they're not hearing. So that means anything below the line is going to be audible. You can hear it. So all of these letters, her grandfather would have been able to hear. But these sounds, her grandfather would not have been able to hear. So let's say we take two sounds like the S and the F, sounds that most individuals with high frequency hearing loss are unable to hear. And let's say we made a word out of one sound that you don't hear and like an O, which is a sound you do hear. So what word would we have? We would have the word fo. And if we did the same thing with the S sound, we would have the word so. Well, those two words don't mean the same thing. But if you're unable to hear the first part of the word because your high frequency is down, then what you hear is O. So when you go to church on Sunday morning and the preacher gets up to read the parable of Jesus and he reads, a foer went out to foe. Why in the world did he say that? Well, it's because my ear did not hear the first sound. But I knew the context, and I knew it must have been an S, not an F. So when people are in a situation where it sounds like people are mumbling, it's because the signal is not adequately distinct to pick up certain speech sounds. So they can hear some quite well, and some they hear quite poorly. The other issue is related to background noise. People with hearing loss have considerably more difficulty if several people are talking at the same time. So if your grandfather were, for example, in a noisy restaurant, he would have much more difficulty than in a quiet room. And then there are other issues that affect understanding, like the speed of the voice. The faster you talk to a person with a hearing loss, the more difficult it is because they don't have time to fill in based on the context, and so you kind of leave them hanging. So the worst conversation would be with a teenage girl who had a high-pitched voice who talks 200 miles an hour.
Right.
And those of you that have hearing loss that are watching this segment know exactly what I'm talking about. If you had a hearing loss like this, the person that would be the easiest would be a man with a lower pitched hearing. So, when you say, I'm not understanding, does it mean that I'm losing my mind? No, it means you're losing your hearing.
If you or someone you love you fear is losing their hearing, you can go out to Audiology Hearing Aid Associates and get it tested in Lynchburg. They're located on Langhorne Road, 434-528-4245. They're also on Main Street in Danville, 434-799-6288. Also online at digitalhearingforyou.com. And we'll be right back.